Shaun Newman podcast.
I know you.
Yeah, in studio with me tonight is my father, Steve Newman.
Scary thought.
So I guess where I kind of want to go with this is just back to the beginning, maybe the late 60s, the early 70s, and talk about your time early on in high school. I know you did a lot of different things, hockey being a mainstay, but then on to figure skating, some football, probably some ball in there too. And so I thought maybe we'd start with, let's just dig a little bit into your football. I know it's 6-man football, not the 11-man that everybody knows. So
Yep.
maybe you could talk a little bit about that back in the day.
Hillmond had a great team probably 4 years before I came along, and they won provincials, and that sticks out in your mind because they had teams come from all over the province, places you never heard of, and they played in Hillmond, if you can imagine, and it was just totally different. So everybody wanted to play football after that.
But 6-man, not 11-man.
No, it was 6.
Which, from what I understand, 6-man was designed for small towns because you can't field I don't know how many guys are on a football team, 40-some, right?
Yeah.
And so you got, 6 guys play the entire game, or you got 10 guys
We
and
had
kind of
some
sub
on
out?
offense, some on defense, and the ones that were really good played both, kind of thing. Eh? So it just depended how your game was going, whether you got to play, sort of thing.
Yeah. It reminds me of intramural football, right? You hut the ball, and then everybody tears off, and they can rush 5 guys. But if you just kind of
Yeah. It was like smear football, and when we played in Hillmond, we played smear volleyball, smear basketball, and so football fit right in.
yeah.
But it's no different than 11. It's just in a smaller scale.
Do you remember? Was it the same size field and everything?
It was the upper level where the school is now.
So relatively the same size.
Yeah.
For people who don't know where Hillmond is, relatively the same.
Yeah.
As an actual football field. Yeah. Man, you get to your exercise in that.
Yeah, for sure. And it went very well until one of the guys broke his leg, and then everybody went, "Ooh, maybe we should be not doing this." And I think the principal at the time said that was it. And then
No
he
more
sold
football.
No more football, and they sold all the equipment.
Now, did every team, was it Hillmond, Paradise Hill, Neilburg, or were you...
I remember Maidstone, Neilburg, probably Lashburn. I don't know. It's a long time ago. I do remember Neilburg because I had a family member playing against me, and we were trying to knock the crap out of each other.
Competitive, right?
Yeah,
It's competitive.
Yeah.
So, you're the big, rugged football player. What position did you play?
First of all, I wasn't big, and I wasn't rugged, and I was a tight end.
You're a tight end. Small and fast.
Small and fast. I could run scared faster than they could run mad.
I think Richard Hewitt described you as a pesky little Ford in the corners in hockey.
Yeah.
I think his exact words were, I don't think anybody knew where he was going. He was going this way, that way.
I probably didn't know where I was going. Actually, the one thing was skating. I could skate better than I could run.
Yeah, just make sure we're fist away from that mic.
Yeah.
So, you're playing football, you're playing hockey, you're doing a little figure skating.
Yeah.
So, from what I understand, from the way Grandma used to talk about it, you used to be a pretty good figure skater.
I understand. I was Mom's son. So I was the apple of her eye. So no wrong here. But she put me in figure skating, did lots of figure skating, lots of summer school in at the new Civic Center at the time. And I stayed in Lloyd by myself at, it was a Geel's. So it'd be Neil Geel's sister. And I stayed there and walked across to the rink, and we skated 2-3 times a day.
Just to put that into perspective, right? Like, how old were you when?
Early teens.
Early teens. And you had, when was Jay playing Midwest? When you were 30?
Yeah, probably.
So 15 years later, you're driving once or twice a week to Maidstone. But at that age, they're leaving you in Lloyd because it's a far distance, essentially.
Well, and it was the neighbors, so Grandma knew her, trusted her.
Yeah.
You know, so. But we'd been figure skating in Hillmond, and the pro there got me and Hope Carmody doing duets, and then we ended up competing as a duet, and we competed in Alberta figure skating doubles, and got second. I must tell you, there was only 2 sets, but we got second.
Yeah, the record books will show you're number 2 in Alberta.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That reminds me of, you remember being at the Grey Cup when Saskatchewan was playing Toronto?
One of the reasons I love Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans is we're at the Grey Cup. We're getting shelled by Doug Flutie and the Toronto Argonauts. And any other fans, just look at the Oiler fans right now, right? Throwing their jerseys, booing, and we're down 42-11, and the entire stand started chanting, We're
number 2.
Yeah, we're number 2. Yeah, that's Rider fans for you. Yeah.
Well, that's what Hope and I were doing. We're number 2. I did compete a little bit in singles too, but there were some really good guys. So I was a better watcher than I was a skater.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, let's switch over to a little bit of hockey. I mean, Canada hockey is just like they go together. Yeah. Growing up, I've heard stories about you like training for junior camp in North Battleford for possibly the Barons, and you were skating on the curling rink and stuff like that. Like, is that true?
Yeah, we Steve Harbin and I got an invite to North Battleford, except we had no ice. The only ice we had was in the curling rink. And so Dad would take us down there after school, and we'd skate laps. There was 2 sheets of ice, so we'd skate down to the one end and jump over the boards and skate back.
What did the curlers think?
Oh, they'd quit curling because it was soft enough that they couldn't curl. But and the ice was really soft in the skating arena. So I don't think it helped us much anyway.
So how was tryouts? Do you remember much about it?
Some big guys, and Steve and I were not very big guys. We were thin and fast, and the hockey we had played was not as much together. I never really learned to play as a team until I hit college. And so a lot of it was individual, and you don't show up as, you kind of show up, but you're not seeing the ice, you're not passing to your teammates and stuff like that.
Now, was it a bunch of exhibition games and then, or was it just a little bit of scrimmage?
It was a long time ago, but they just divided. They had a group of guys from all over, divided them into 2 teams, and let's get at her. Yeah, there was no testing to see if you could do crossovers or something. It was just throw a puck out there and let's go.
Well, you laugh about it, but when I went to LaRange, we'd play our exhibition games, but we had skill days where we had to do pivots and work on footwork and show the coaches that, right? Like that was part of tryouts back then.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a while after you're trying out at the same time.
Yeah. But we just weren't big enough either, eh? Like we were.
Describe to everybody how small you were.
Well, probably 5'6" and 125, maybe on a windy day. Could skate fast, but nothing there to hit with. Yeah. And back then there was lots of hooking, holding. You had to break away from it.
Were you wearing helmets?
Yeah. They were sort of like water buckets.
Yeah.
My favorite helmet was a toque. It was called a toque.
If you don't know what a toque is, look it up online. Yeah, T-U-K.
No, it's T-U-I-K.
Oh, it's T-U-I-K.
Yeah. Terrible helmet.
They looked awesome.
But Grandma she almost put me in I forget what it was called, with earmuffs. I looked really cute.
You didn't go to tryouts like that, did you?
No, I didn't. I should have, because they would have stood around and went, "What? Look at that." Yeah.
So then you don't make that team.
No.
You come back to high school?
Yeah.
Because you were 15, you said? And then instead of playing, I don't know.
Well, we were probably 14 at the time. And then the next year, we had a really good team as 15-year-olds. And we'd done well. We were the top of the league. And I tied with a Nut Brown from Neilburg for scoring. He ended up in the Saskatoon Blades. There's a picture of us. I'm like 5'6" and 125. He's 6'2" and a good 180. So I could see why he went to Saskatoon.
The boys who are listening out in Hillmond are wondering where your scoring touch got lost on me.
Yeah.
I have a hard time breaking a couple goals in a year.
Yeah, the figure skating really helped.
That pirouette.
Yeah, pirouette. Yeah. You could 3-jump over most guys.
So we were talking about it off air, but you're in high school. You're playing for the Allstars now, and we're talking the Hillmond Allstars, who are the senior team.
And I don't know why, but they were short players, and they'd won the Sask-Alta 3 years in a row, and so they invited Steve Harbin and I to come and play halfway through the season. So away we went.
And how was that?
Scared stiff. The old arena. Let's talk about the old arena.
Sure.
The old arena had an office, and inside the office was a big chair that the caretaker sat in, which is Bill Noble and Dick Lunt. And there was a great big water tank that heated the hot water. So that office was smoking hot all the time. So when it was 40 below, it was a good place to be. And then they tapped it out, and they had a 45-gallon drum with some burlap out the back and with a tap on it. You filled up the 45-gallon drum, and that's how they flooded the ice.
Oh, how times have changed.
Well, and the word rink rat comes from all the kids would go out there and push scrapers and scrape the ice, and then you had to shovel the snow off the ice, and then they would flood it with a 45-gallon drum.
Now, you're talking old rink, the Silverdome.
Silverdome.
And to begin with, it was flooded with 45 gallon drum.
Well, and no fancy clock. And
so
the bell,
scorecards?
I think they did some writing on some score. But what I remember about, they had a little piece box, it looked like, that had 20 minutes on it. That was the timer. And then they held up on a board the score. And the buzzer for the beginning of the period and the end of the period was a tiller blade.
So somebody banging on it?
Yes. Your grandfather. He was the timekeeper with Jim Sutherland. And this tiller blade had broke on somebody. So it was a round tiller blade that was missing a piece because it probably hit a rock. And they had it tied so that when they were standing there, this thing was hung down from the roof, and they would use a hammer and hit the tiller blade. It sounded like a dong. And that was your time's up, hit the tiller blade. Time to get the game going. Grandpa was big on everything had to start on time. And so he would, as soon as it got 8 o'clock, he'd start hammering on that tiller blade, and the teams would get out there, and away we go.
And we just bought, I think it was $12,000 clock for the rink. Or I shouldn't say we fundraised $12,000 for a brand new clock that pretty much can comb your hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, this was probably donated because somebody hit a rock,
and they were annoyed that they were banging two pieces of wood together or something.
You talk about safety. You know, if the rope breaks, you get sliced in two by a tiller blade, right? And well, let's talk about the goal judges. At the one end, it wasn't bad because there was a balcony, and you stepped into the goal judge block. At the other end, there was this ladder that looked like the Starway to Heaven, and this ladder was on a rope, and it would come down, and then you had to climb 15 to 20 rungs on the ladder and climb into this birdhouse box with no safety. And I remember going up there as a kid, and if we got caught up there, they'd just yell at us, say, "You kids get down there, you're going to kill yourself." But we'd stick an adult up there, and he'd go judge the game. And it was the Howard brothers, that they were twins. One did one end, one did the other. And in the office, they had two big black cushions. And so, started the game, they grabbed their two black cushions, one each. One go to the one end. And if you can imagine, the guy that went up the stairway had to haul up his cushion, throw it in, and then sit on it. And it was like sitting on this chair with a little bit of a board in front of you that looked down.
Safety first, kids.
And then you had to back down there at the end of the period, right? So, yeah. But it was actually, there's a good story of one of the Howard. They loved their hockey. They liked the Allstars, and the one time, I don't know which one it was, threw his cushion at the ref because he didn't like the call.
Did he get his cushion back?
He was sitting up in his box. But yeah. But so there wasn't a lot of people went to the rink all the time because it was a place to meet, and it didn't matter if it was snowing or cold. You always went to the rink. And then there was two dressing rooms at the time, the home and the visitor. And there was a wall between you and me, and if you were quiet, you could hear what they were planning.
So you boys did a little reconnaissance work.
We go, put our ear up against the wall. Oh, yeah, they're going to do this. Yeah. But the heat came from the office, and there was a grate in each room about this size and that wide. And it had
for the people listening, how big you talking? 3 feet by...
Well, put it this way. There was a sheet of 4x8 plywood that covered the grate. And if you were cold, you started pulling the sheet back so that more hot air come up, and it would boil you. And there was a piece of plywood in each room. And so that's how they controlled the heat. They didn't have thermostats. It was controlled by plywood.
I have fond memories of that room growing up, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the dressing room a little bit. Playing senior, you got to play when you were 15, 14.
We were scared stiff. Those guys were in their prime. They were probably late 20s, early 30s. Very good team. Big guys. You got the Priests, the Mackenzies, like just big, tough farm boys. And when we walked in, there was in the one corner, the wall came down. And so that's where Harbin and I sat because we were small. And you looked around and you looked at all these men and you went, we're dead. And then we got dressed, went out and had warm up, came back in. Earl Priest was the coach. Well, he was the captain, and he kind of captain coach. He never really coached. He was more of a, okay, guys, we got to smarten up. Let's go get out there and let's do it. And so here we got Steve and Steve, little bitty nothings. They can skate, that's all they know. And so Earl says, okay, so where are we going to put these two? And, it's almost like the old boys go, picking their toe, looking around. Nobody wanted us. I mean, who wants,
two wet noodles.
Two wet noodles out there. And so Earl said, okay, I'll center him. I'll put him between me. And that's what he did. And so out we went. And we played with Earl. And Earl was tough. Well, when I first walked in, I probably didn't know Earl that much. I knew of him and Vernon and Donnie and Lyle. Lyle didn't play, but he was tough too. But Earl was missing a thumb. And I'm pretty sure I sat there and looked at that missing thumb and thought, he doesn't even have a thumb.
Don't you tell the story, Earl's centering you.
Yeah.
And one of you gets hit in the corner.
Yeah.
And he goes and rams.
We were playing Paradise Hill. It was actually me. And Earl took care of us. Real good care of us. Both Steve and I. And George Palin, who was a big boy, big man, took a fairly hefty run at me in the corner. And I was lucky enough to just get out of his way. And in the old days, we called it chicken wire. They didn't have plexiglass. They had this wire mesh. And he put his shoulder where my head was into the mesh. And I just got out of the way. And no sooner had he hit the mesh than Earl came up, hit him, put his arm against his neck, shoved his head into the wire, and said, leave the kids alone.
Did they come after you after that?
Nobody touched us. Earl was great. Yeah. He wore number 8, by the way. and
Oh.
was captain.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He, I called him coached from that day on.
Called him coach.
I called him coach.
Yeah.
He never taught me a thing, but taught you about life.
Yeah. I'd love to stick on the Allstars because there's so many good stories there. And
Well, the other thing was our relatives had come from BC, Danny and Bob and them, and we'd watch Hockey Night in Canada. There were 6 teams, and the 6 teams, there was only Toronto, Montreal, right? And so I can remember, I'm pretty sure it was Danny, was a Montreal Canadian fan, and everybody else was Toronto. And Danny would sit in the corner, and we'd sit on the other side of the room. And we'd watch Hockey Night in Canada. But when I was growing up, I didn't want to be an NHLer. I wanted to be Vernon Priest. And he wore number 5.
number 5.
Yeah.
Well, for our listeners, it took me a long time to wear number 5. Actually, it took me all the way back until I came to
Well, it
Hillmond.
took me a long time because I had to wait till Vernon quit. And as soon as he quit, I wanted 5.
Isn't that funny? So growing up, I played my hockey in Lloyd,
Yep.
and you used to always talk to me about wearing number 5, and I used to be like, number 5, I'm not wearing number 5, right? And then I went out east, and I really wanted 4,
Yep.
and I lost it on a coin toss to AJ Royce, to my demise. And he played, and so I got number 8.
Yep.
And I wore 8 all the way through my college career, too. And then in Finland, they gave me Jari Kurri, number 17, which made no sense as a defenseman, but whatever.
Yep.
And then I came back to Hillmond, and all this time, Dad's pestering me, right? Like, you should wear number 5. You should wear number 5. You should wear number 5. Finally, I'm like, I'm in Hillmond. The heck, I'll wear number 5 because number 8 was taken by Jason Ross at the time. Yeah. And that I never really thought about where number 5 came from. I did not know Vern Priest.
Priest won the scoring title numerous years.
Yeah.
Very good hockey player.
Yeah.
They always laughed that he's got universal joints for skates because he could just, and he was just very good. He was kind of my idol. I didn't look at the NHL teams. I looked at the All-Star team.
Yeah, I was bugging Ken Rutherford on this last week about if he looked like when he was a kid, and he was a volleyball player. Yeah. When he went and watched volleyball at a young age, if there was a younger guy or an older guy that he watched that he liked.
Yeah.
And he gave me some guy's name, but nobody in the school. And it's cool that you think Vern Priest, because for me growing up, I remember going to watch Border Kings because the Hitmen or the Allstars weren't going anymore. And I remember the Mann brothers. And I remember getting to go in the dressing room there as a kid and going, holy crap, these guys are manholy. They're chewing in here and they're drinking in here and cussing in here.
Yeah.
And that was what senior hockey is, or was, and still is, right?
Well,
I mean, all those shenanigans go on.
We went into the All-Star room, and these guys are chewing snuff. And I didn't even know what snuff was. I tried it once, and that's probably it. But all them guys would come off the ice and chew snuff in between periods. And
was there any smokers?
There might have been a couple.
Because when I first started with the Hitmen, there was guys that would play a period, come in, go outside, and there'd be like 3 or 4 of them, and go for a smoke in between periods, and then come in and then play a period, and then go around and do it again. And I remember thinking, you're gonna do what?
They were drinkers. They'd bring in a gunny sack of beer, or 2 cases, after the game, walk through the whole crowd and walk in and sit there and have their beer after the game.
Well, that's still a tradition.
That's probably where had my first beer.
It's still a tradition of
Yeah.
senior hockey in our league, especially, and I'm sure every other league, that the home team provides a flat of beer for the opposing team, right? Like I think that's been going on since your day or close to it, I would assume.
Yeah.
Did you give the opposing team beer at that time?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been a long-standing tradition then.
For a long time, yeah. And they bash her. Well, that's another thing. So your grandpa and Jim Sutherland worked in the penalty box. The penalty box wasn't much bigger than this room. So when you got into a tussle, I didn't because I wasn't big enough to throw anything around, throw gloves at a guy. They would have to sit together. So if you had somebody like Ernal Priest that just beat the crap out of some poor guy, then the guy had to go and sit beside him in the penalty box. And then if they had a brouhaha and you had like 7 players, I can remember Dad and Jim kind of stuck in a little corner and there's 7 players. Who's out next? Oh, yeah, you. Get over. Sorry. Well, it was good old days, I guess.
Now, after you graduate, you go to Vermilion in college.
Yep. Scared stiff. Again. I get to college, never been away from home. You're given a roommate. So I was picking my stuff, hauled it into the room. I'm sitting there and I'm going, well, this isn't all that bad. And then this guy walks in, weighs 250, hair down to his waist, and sits cross-legged on his bed with a water pipe. And I think, I'm dead again. And his name was Jim Miller, and he was great.
Yeah.
But never being away from home, you thought, oh.
Yeah,
And it was actually the best 2 years of my life. The people you met, still friends with them. Yeah. A lot of fun.
Now, you told me something new that I did not know before we got on here. You played football at college.
Yeah.
Now, just a short stint, and was it
I
6
played
man?
Part of the last half of the year before hockey started, sort of thing. And then kind of got tailed into hockey, sort of thing. But they had a good team. They had lots to pick, so.
Was that 11 man or was that?
That was 11.
That was the big thing. Yeah. And did you enjoy football?
Again, you're not big enough to, other than I could run fast, probably catch the ball, but it's a big man sport or a tough man sport. I don't know how tough I was.
I think you're pretty tough. I think you're
selling
yourself short.
Telling you before, they had one guy. His name was JR, James Robinson, and a little bit crazy. He'd do anything, and they'd dress him up in a gorilla suit, and they'd pull into, I think it was Bonnyville, and they'd tie him to the bus, and then the whole game he'd just throw himself against the bus and growl and roll around, and all the players, everybody be looking at him like, what is that?
So,
But
so they have a guy in a gorilla suit tied to the team bus, chained to the team bus.
Yeah, they
Yelling?
had this big login chain, holding it back.
And did it mess with teams?
I think it did because he never stopped performing. The whole time he was chained there, he was banging against the bus and yelling and growling. And
What did your team think of it?
Oh, they loved it,
Did
they parked the bus where they knew everybody was going to watch.
Everybody was going to watch, so
Yeah,
everybody
you
was
couldn't
focused
help
on
but
that,
watch.
not the football game.
Yeah. But
So you played college hockey as well. Now, did you get picked up by that team, or you were just going to college?
no,
and tryouts,
I was going to
or?
college. They had tryouts, and so just a whole bunch of us went to the tryout, and then they picked from there.
And did you guys have a good team?
We ended up winning the league.
Now, stop you right there. You won the league, but it was a men's league, right? It wasn't
men's
different
league.
colleges?
Yeah. It was called the Central Hockey League. Centennial Hockey.
Centennial Hockey League?
Yeah.
So you
I don't think it's even a league anymore.
Who would you be going around playing, though?
We played Vegreville, Lac La Biche, Elk Point, Two Hills, a team out of Vermilion.
And you get one Rookie of the Year that year as well.
Yeah, that came as a big surprise. I started off pretty slow because my game, I would say, was skating and stick handling. It wasn't playing as a team. And so when I started, I was just busy trying to go around everybody. And then we had an excellent coach, Owen Clouston. And he worked with me. And he was a very positive guy. And he got me working with my line, I guess.
Yeah.
And then he started working on me and says, "You got a really good shot. Why don't you use it?" And I'm going, "Well, I don't have a good shot." Yeah. But all of a sudden I had a good shot. But most of my goals and stuff were deking.
Yeah.
I wasn't shooting much at all. So, which goes back to in the old All-Star days when they broke a stick. When you break a stick now, it's right in the middle of the shaft. When the All-Stars broke a stick, it was in the blade. So if the blade was this long, half of it would break off.
That was the weakest part.
Yeah. And so you'd had a blade about that long. And so all the kids would go down. And after we scraped the ice, we'd go grab these broken sticks, which had the shaft and a little bit of blade like that. And could you ever shoot with that? You couldn't stick handle, but you could just fire the puck. You could pick top corner because you only had that much hitting the ice or hitting the puck. And you got really good. And that's probably where you learned to shoot, But yeah, we didn't want full blades. Just give me the half blade.
Well, I gotta ask. Dustin mentioned something about a humidifier story in college, and I don't know what the heck he's talking about.
They were always playing. They talk about hazing and all that stuff. In the back of the bus, I got, they call it a tape job. They strip you down and they give you a tape job, and then they help you take the tape off. And so this one guy, he was dead against it, George Bowser. And he fought it a lot. And so they got together and they said, "We got to get George. How are we going to get George?" His roommate played on the team. His nickname was Turkey. And so they snuck in his room when he wasn't there and peed in his humidifier. Because his humidifier, he lived by his humidifier. If you talk of a health nut maybe or something, everything about him was, humidifier, clean air, all this stuff. And our room was 2 doors down, and you could hear down those hallways everything that was going on. So they peed in his humidifier, and they waited. And Turkey said every night, you could set your watch, George would get into bed, get out of bed, turn his humidifier on, get into bed. And it would only take about 10 minutes, and the room was yellow. and you could hear the yelling and the screaming. But they got him. And that was probably worse than a tape job for George, because he
lived and died by his
lived
humidifier.
by his humidifier. Yeah. But college was fun. A lot of fun. We had brawls, which I'm not a fighter, but we had some good guys on there. We had guys that also played on the wrestling team, and the wrestling team won Alberta that year as well. So they were good guys. I got pictures of them. They taped their ears back, and there's like a rabid dog. And so we go into Lac La Biche, and we might have mooned him on our way in. I can't remember.
On the team bus.
On the team bus.
The
team bus. Yeah. And then we were up on them 10-5, something like that, and then it got western. And that's when the wrestlers came in.
Out in the stands.
Yeah, and we had great support. They'd have a bus for us, and then a bus for all our college, and like the college would fill the bus, and they had a great big drum, and it was like a bunch of natives. There'd be like 6 of them beating on the drum, and their favorite saying was "Giver," 1, 2, 3, Giver. And actually in Two Hills, we ended up with the cops coming in because they had a brawl that might have started when one of the college people streaked the ice. But that Two Hills, that the same arena that you just finished playing, we played them in the final, and they'd won the league 3 or 4 years in a row. They were a very good team, and we were down 8-2 in game 5, and we came back and beat them in overtime.
That's quite.
Remember that?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. I bet you the bus ride was a bit of a blur.
Oh yeah. And there was another guy, we called him Wally Unusual. His name was Wally Musial. He'd meet the bus at the top of the river hill as we were coming into town. Every time we were coming back, wearing a buffalo robe with nothing underneath it. He'd walk out in front of the bus would stop, he'd flash us, and he'd say, "How'd you do, guys? We won. Good job." And he'd walk away. And you'd go, "Where's this guy go?" Every game. Yeah. He was there to meet us. But we ended up winning the next games and won it at home. And then it was a gigantic party. Just it was a lot of fun. But
Senior hockey now. Well, actually, going to Meadow Lake and playing this year, and maybe it's the deeper you get into Saskatchewan, the more it's like that. But the fans in Meadow was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right? It was pretty cool to play in something like that. But you don't see that a ton much more. Like, is that just it's easier to get around, so people are...
Yeah, I don't know. When we played Lashburn, Paradise Hill, it was jam-packed.
Like, you're talking stand room only.
Wall to wall. Lashburn stood on the far side. Hillmond stood on our side. And they'd yell and scream. It was just it was packed, jam-packed full. Yeah. And lots of people knew people from, Paradise Hill, Lashburn, stuff like that. Yeah. Actually, one time we were playing, I want to say it was Lashburn, and Joey Carmody brought his pet skunk in, and he let it go on the Lashburn side, and it'd been descended, and I think he called it pedal or something like that. I don't know. We're on the bench there, And all of a sudden you see the people on the far side. They stand up, and then everybody starts going as fast as they can that way. And we're going, what is going on? And like, you can only go so far in the Silver Dome, and then you hit the end. And so they ran all the way down to the end, and Joey just let his skunk go, and the skunk thought, this is fun, so he just followed them. And then Joey walks down there and, oh, there you are, Pedal. Picks up his skunk. Takes him back.
That's probably a story for a different day on why a guy has a skunk as a pet.
I know. Yeah. I don't know. That's Joey. Yeah.
So you play college hockey.
Yeah.
You get Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. That was a surprise. We were having dinner. I had no idea. And I guess probably voted on by the teams. I don't know.
Yeah.
And they just announced it over the loudspeaker at dinner at college in the middle of classes. And it just a big surprise to me. I didn't expect that.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you played one more year after that?
Played one more year after that.
And then hung it up and got your pilot license.
No, actually, I more or less hung it up the year after we won it. And went after my pilot's license. And I was dating a certain redhead. And I was a little bit Twitter-pated. And yeah.
So you get your pilot license.
Yeah.
And you hang up your skates. And you're dating a woman. And then you have some flying shenanigans out here, too.
Yeah. Yeah. I skated better than I flew.
Now, I knew you had your pilot license, and I've heard the odd story. I've heard the, well, maybe you can elaborate on it. TPing Hillmond, I think. Correct?
The which?
TPing Hillmond?
TP.
TPing. Toilet paper.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Grandma tell you that?
Well, maybe.
Yeah. That was initiation. They were trying to make me, I think, put peanut butter on the toilet paper and sell it to people or something. So I thought, what I should do is I'll just grab the end of the toilet paper and throw it out into the crowd. And it went all the way to the back. Yeah, it didn't go well.
What was it? So what was going on down below?
Oh, in the plane?
So you're flying over?
No, that was initiation. No, plane. We were over at Noble's, and we said we'll find you deer. So I forget who was with me. Might have been Ardell. And we were flying around, found some deer, and tied some toilet paper with a little map on it to a rock, and dropped it down top.
And did it work?
Yeah, and we flew around over top, and the deer, they could hear them, and because they were noisy, and when deer were going, what is going on? And they were long gone before the guys ever got there.
And we'll move on for your fly, but I gotta ask, dive bombing in the far past trash?
No, it was out in one of Olson's fields. And at that time, they had Argos, which were 6-wheeled or tracked. And they go through water and mud and all that stuff. And Ardell and Peter, and there was 3 of them with a whole bunch of guys. And they were out screwing around on a early spring on a field, chewing up mud and just having fun. And Danny Snyder and I were in a 2-seater and said, there's Oli. Let's scare him. So we were at about 1,000 feet. Cut the motor, put the nose straight down right on him, and just let her go. And she just kept building up speed until your tachometer goes or your airspeed goes green, yellow, red. If you go to red, the wings fall off. So we got it into the yellow and thought, well, that's probably good enough. Fed it the full power, pulled back on the stick, the motor revved up, but nothing happened. The nose came up, and we were going so fast that it just kept mushing and mushing and mushing towards the ground. And supposedly until the wings catch lift. And the wings caught lift about 11 feet off the ground and shot us back up there like a slingshot. Scared the crap out of us. Scared Ardell and all them guys. Everybody went home. They went home. We went back home. We didn't do that again. But that's why I probably shouldn't fly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then Gerald Wayhill was my teacher. And one time it's the old Lloyd Airport. We're taxiing out, and Nelson Lumber had a U2, they called it. It's a twin engine, wings above, and a big belly on it. And they came in and forgot to put the landing gear down and landed on their belly in front of us.
Everybody was okay.
Everybody was okay. Lots of sparks. And Gerald says, and remember to put your landing gear down.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So, you win Rookie of the Year. You kind of play a year after that. You get your pilot license. Now, you start having kids.
Yeah.
You move back to the farm.
Yeah.
Then you start playing senior again?
Yep. That was about the time probably Gord came back.
And what was it like having a guy who was, a step away from the show?
Oh, yeah, Gord was he was a pro. When he came back, he was just above us. And he could skate, shoot, check. And he was just that much faster than everybody. And his hits were demoralizing to the other team because he would hit a guy and it was just devastating. But I was talking to him the other day, something about a shot. We play hockey at 10:30 in the morning, and he says, my shot was never good. And I said, well, I remember when you came back and Freddie Pepper was in net, and you stood on the dot in one of the circles and told him, I'm going to put it right here. And you did it 4 times in a row. And Fred knew it was going there, and there was nothing he could do about it. So he was pretty darn good when he came back. Yeah.
When I'm at the time in my life now where I got 2 little kids under, almost 3 now. Shay's almost 3. When you were having kids and still playing senior, at what point did you go, I just don't know if I can keep doing this? Like, was there a
I
moment?
had too many kids. That was my problem. By the time we had Harley, then I was getting into coaching Jason and all, and it was just getting too much. That, and I started losing my mind.
I feel that every once in a while now.
Yeah.
I got a short fuse on ice at times.
Yeah. Well, I'd gone through all my hockey where when they hit you, their elbow is at your ear. And they would just say, oh, you're not tough enough. Eh? Well, I got to the point I just had enough of that. And then it boiled over. And so I was just getting too angry, too fast, too easy. And I thought, and I was coaching kids, and they were just going 100 miles an hour. And went from there.
I'd love to go down the coaching rabbit hole, but we could probably be here for another hour. So maybe we'll leave that for a different time. What I was wondering, and I talked to the siblings before, you took a little bit of hiatus from playing hockey. Probably, I would assume, roughly in your mid 40s when you started trucking long haul.
Yeah.
To, I don't know, your mid to late 50s.
Yeah.
What was it like? Because now you talked about skating with Gord Redden in the mornings. Now you're skating with a group of guys around your age, where you're the young guy again.
Yeah.
You just went and played in a Never Sweats tournament, right? With over 50?
Yeah.
Over 50-year-olds. Like, what's that been like going where I almost thought you couldn't, or you didn't think you could play anymore? Like, and then all of a sudden finding this group and getting back into it, and maybe what's that experience been like?
First of all, the guys, great bunch of guys. That makes a total difference. If you were, if there was whacking and hacking and all that, you wouldn't do it. But the other thing too, as you get older, well, especially when I hit 60, I was sore all the time, and I thought, boy, if I get on skates, they're gonna be a wreck, And I was surprised that when I got on skates, it felt really good, and it all come kind of back to you, and there was no pain, and so I'm sore before I play. While I play, it's great, and I get off the ice and I go, oh, that's sore. But now playing 3 times a week, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And I'm not losing my mind. When I quit, I was losing my mind.
Well,
and because you just had a lot of anger in you from it.
When I started, I quit when I was 18. So at 18, I remember working at West Can and being like, I'm done. I'd been told too many times at junior camps that I was too small, and I'm just tired of that. Being told you're not good enough, essentially. And then I got the call from Larry, as we all remember, or maybe I should explain. I got a call on a Friday saying, hey, you want to come play hockey out in Ontario? And by Monday morning, I was gone. I was down there, and I never looked back. And now you look at it, and, geez, that's a pretty fateful call that Friday, right? But now what I hear at 32 is a lot of guys in the league call me old boy.
Yeah.
The refs call me old boy. And I keep going, like, geez, I don't feel that old.
Yeah.
And I look at you playing hockey at 62 now, enjoying it the way you are. You talk about Des McMillan. He's 70.
When he played with the old Allstars, he probably won a couple of championships with him.
With Hillmond, yeah.
And he was a good player.
Yeah. And he's now 70.
He's 73.
73 and still playing.
And has great stories. Actually, you should do this with him.
Do this with him.
Yep.
Well, I'll see if I can get him on.
Because he went from the Allstars to Fort St. John. I believe he went to Weyburn. And he was in the system for a while. He said he wished he'd have kept his first check. I want to say it was $17, but I don't know. But he's tons of stories.
Absolutely.
Next time you see Gord Redden, you should shake his hand and thank him, because all the stuff that you do in your hockey was what I learned from him.
Learn from Gord.
Yeah. So the stuff behind the net, the countering, all that stuff came from Gord.
Came from Gord.
Yeah.
Just to go back to the time you took off, is that maybe one thing you look back on and go, man, I wish I hadn't put the equipment down? Or, I mean, you had 5 kids. Heck, I just talked to Ken Rutherford, and he's got 5 kids, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how the heck he finds time to do half the stuff he does.
Yeah.
But with 5 kids, and Jay was 10 and I was born essentially, right? Like 76 to 86, you got 10 kids. You got 10 kids and you're 30. So I'm sitting at 32 and I got 2. Like, I'm a little bit behind you.
I actually don't know how we had the last 2, because we spent all our time coaching, going to games, and Mom would go one way and I'd go the other. And then when we had 5, it just made it just that much more. And then you guys were playing ball and probably didn't have time. It was pretty constant. And you guys did really well in all your, between hockey and ball. There's a lot of provincials and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it all takes time. You got to give up something to.
Yeah, no. I know that day's coming. You're right. Everybody asks how many years I got left, and I go, well, I want to play until.
Frank Trombley, what, 20 years?
20 years.
Yeah.
But I look at Dez, and I go, maybe I shouldn't look at it like I got to quit playing. I got to quit playing senior probably at some time. But playing hockey can go until you're 73. And in that case, I got like 40-some years left.
Yeah. I would say don't quit senior until you'll know when guys start passing you. I mean, I mean, I hacked you because I couldn't catch you anymore.
A funny little story for the listeners is this is probably 3-4 years ago at Christmas. The Newman family rents ice at the Hillmond rink, and we go down and we skate for an hour.
Started out with 5, and now there's like
about 10, I think.
10, yeah. Families are getting bigger.
We're all competitive, and I remember Lee Simons tells me every time I sees it, but essentially I went around Dad. I just come off playing college hockey, right? And Dad high sticked me in the face, and we almost had a scrap there at center ice. Dad goes one way, I go to the other. And Jay comes up to me after me and goes, maybe we need to calm this down a little bit. We're not going to have a Christmas if we keep playing these games.
Yeah. I was always competitive. Even when I took you guys down to the rink, like, Mom would be tired of kids being around, so she had the keys, so we'd go down the rink and just cut loose for like 4 hours. And he would come in the morning and go, who chewed up the ice?
Yeah. Small town hockey when you can squeeze into a rink and nobody knows.
Yeah. But yeah, your body starts to give out. Don't quit until you can't do it anymore.
Well, it's cool to see you playing again. I mean, I did notice it at the family skate this year. We didn't come to blows, but I couldn't get around you.
2 of the guys that we skate with are 83.
Yeah.
And not that they're doing a lot, but they're out there.
Yeah. I think you have to. I mean.
Yeah. And it's a fellowship. It's just good to see the guys every time you get there. Everybody's happy to see everybody.
Yeah.
Whereas, 30 years ago, you're trying to run each other into the boards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to leave it there. Okay. I want to thank you for coming on. I've really enjoyed this. I think we need to do it again because I know the siblings want me to talk to you about coaching because you coached with how many people, but I want to give it its due.
I coached with the best. I coached with Gord, who's just a wealth of information. I coached with Dave McLean, and he's just a wealth of information. I couldn't have tied myself to 2 better guys.
Yeah.
And just learned a ton. I was just a big sponge.
Well, we're over an hour. So I think what we'll do is we'll table that for the next time. I'll have you back on, and we'll talk about some coaching stuff and maybe if you enjoyed that more than playing, or maybe go down that rabbit hole and see where it leads us.
When you're winning, it's a lot of fun.
Winning solves all problems.
All problems.
That's right.
Yeah. A
Yeah.
win is a win is a win.
That's right. Okay. Well, thanks,
Okay.
Dad.
Yep.
Yep.